used to be over at UT before he moved out to Hicksville here and started over at Edward Jones. So I briefly want to share a little bit about my journey with you and what I do in my civilian job and how we are working together to support our men and women that have answered the stations called the service and have served in some branch of the military, whether or not World War II to present. So that's kind of what we do. So I'll start out with this picture. This is a pretty famous picture of Bill Clinton when he was probably 17 or 18 years old, shaking the hands of President John F. Kennedy in a rose garden at the White House. And I remember seeing this picture as a youngster, and I thought, wow, that's kind of captivating me. Here's a guy that, you know, was meeting the President of the United States, and how often does something like that happen? Well, then I got to thinking, well, that's a pretty important picture, and when Clinton ran for office, that picture, frankly, was popping up all the time, talking about his journey from his childhood to being the President of the United States. So, regardless of where, you know, we fall in the political spectrum, it's really about kind of supporting the office. So sometimes we don't agree with who's in the office, but we still support the office, and we still support the President of the United States. Or as a military guy, supporting our Commander-in-Chief, carrying out the orders of the day, regardless if it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, you name it. They set the tone, and we follow it. So, fast forward to this picture. And the projector's a little dark, so hopefully you can see these photos up here. So, here I am, probably 19, 20 years old, and I was at home watching the evening news, and they said, George W. Bush is going to be coming to Akron, Ohio on a train stop tour campaigning for President of the United States. So, wow, here's my Bill Clinton moment. I'm going to go potentially be the next President of the United States. I didn't know at the time you can't wear your military uniform in a political function. I mean, after all, I was just a young private. But I know now. So I get down there with my high school girlfriend, and the place was on lockdown. You couldn't get in anywhere. All these Secret Service crawling around, SWAT teams, police officers, the whole place was on lockdown. The next thing you know, I find myself inside the perimeter where the press corps that was traveling with George W. Bush was going to be coming off the trains and into a set of bike corrals, and that's kind of where they were going to be positioned for Bush's comments there in Akron, Ohio. So a Secret Service guy came over to me and said, hey, soldier, can you do us a favor and just make sure no public comes into this section, this little bike section where the press is going to come unless they have a special pin on their collar, then you can let them in. I said, oh, no problem, sir. So I popped my chest up a little bit. I just kind of stood there like I owned the place. I had no clue what I was doing, but the press corps came off, and they ended up going to a different section, completely different section. So I'm just standing there by myself, and he gets done with his comments, and he starts working the bicycle fence, shaking hands. And here came Dick Cheney and Mrs. Cheney and Laura Bush, and here comes George Bush, and he's probably like 20 feet away, and he makes a beeline straight for the limousine. It's so close. I mean, I can't believe we're going to miss this. So I told my girlfriend, Emily, I said, let's go. She says, where are we going? So I'm going to walk over there. I'm going to meet him. I mean, we just drove all the way down here from home to Akron. I'm going to go meet the guy. And there was this gap between these other bike posts that was maybe like 3 feet wide. I grabbed her hand, I just popped my chest, I started walking. I called his name, and he says, come on. So I go up there, and I meet him and talk to him briefly, and I said, hey, sir, you know, thank you for your service. I might want to run one day myself, so let's get a picture together just in case that ever happens. So he starts chuckling. We get a picture together, and then I said, can someone get a picture of my girlfriend and I, the governor? And everyone starts laughing, and Bush says, well, who's going to take it? I'm like, someone, please take the picture. And they come over and they take the picture. Well, I didn't know that a few years later I would be deployed to Bosnia right after September 11th happened. So I deployed to Bosnia. I volunteered for deployment to Bosnia for this reason. This is a morgue with 5,000 decomposing bodies, and our forces were in Bosnia as part of a peacekeeping mission. So we were deploying to Bosnia. I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, 20 years old, trying on my cold weather gear for deployment, when a first sergeant asked me, where did you hide my boots, Ghanbari? I said, well, you didn't have white socks on and you were in a proper uniform, first sergeant, you probably have your boots. He said, no, seriously, well, you know, we've just come under attack. And I remember giving him his boots, and we went outside in this building, equipment issue building, and they turned our radio on in a small minivan, and we heard the planes, the commentary of the planes hitting the towers. And I thought, wow, this is the real deal. You know, I joined in 1999 when I was 17 years old, and our country's at war now. And our history and our trajectory will be changed dramatically from the peacetime that we were in right now. So I remember deploying over there, and the commanding general sent someone down one day and said, Specialist Ghanbari, you need to report to the commanding general's office. And I went in and I knocked on the door. I said, yes, sir. He said, you work for me now. You're going to be my photographer. You're going to travel everywhere I go. That's going to be your mission for the rest of the deployment. So at the age of 15 years old is when I got into photography. I started freelancing for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, selling them pictures of car accidents. April 1st, 1997, a semi-truck flipped on Interstate 90, and I rode my bicycle to the highway, and I jumped the fence, and I got the pictures, and the cops tried to tell me, hey, kid, get off the highway. You can't. I said, I'm with the press. I'm good. So that's where I kind of got my love for photography at a young age. And my father was a television photojournalist, so growing up, I always had the opportunity to, frankly, have a front seat to history, whether it be local history or state history or national history or world history. I was always kind of captivated by what was going on. So little did I know, again, this picture's really dark on the screen, but that's Air Force One in the background. So I was at college, and I got a call from the Associated Press in New York, and they said, hey, we follow you pretty closely with your photography, and we'd like to know if you want to come intern for us in Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery, Alabama. What's there to do in Alabama? Is this a good use of my time? I'm going to have to take some time off of school. So I went down to Alabama, and I interned with a gentleman by the name of Dave Martin, who passed away, I think 4 or 5 years ago now. He passed away photographing a college football game in Atlanta. But I went down and I interned for Dave Martin. And while I was down there, the whole world's eyes were on Alabama from that time I was down there. So the Olympic bomber went to trial. The widow of the last Civil War soldier died. They sent me to Atlanta to photograph Atlanta Braves games. Next thing you know, Dave comes in and says, all 22 photo interns are going to be going to New York City to learn about the AP and how the AP works. And for those of you that don't know what the AP is, it's the Associated Press. It's probably the longest running newswire service, one of the most reputable news organizations out there. So they put us all on a plane, all 22 interns that were all across the country, 18 reporters and 4 photographers, and off we went to New York City. I thought, wow, this is big time. I've never been here before. So they had all the folks come in and tell us about the AP. All the way from some beat reporter or beat photographer all the way to the CEO of the AP. And every one of them came and I chased them down the hallway when they were done. I said, here's my resume, here's my portfolio. I want to work at the Associated Press. I'm still in college, but I like to come work for the AP. So I graduated in December 17th of 2004. And reported to Washington, D.C. as the youngest member of the Associated Press photo staff in D.C. I was 23 years old. And this is on my 25th birthday. This was my first trip aboard Air Force One. So I remember getting on the plane thinking, wow, this is kind of crazy. Here I was looking at that picture of Bill Clinton shaking hands with John F. Kennedy. My 8th grade class trip to Washington, D.C. where I put my hand under the fence and I grabbed a couple pieces of grass from the White House, which I still have in my other wallet. Inside a little map of Washington. I thought, wow, this is pretty neat. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to travel around the world on Air Force One with the most powerful person in the world that's making decisions every day that don't just impact us, but they impact the world. And we were flying from Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base, down to Oklahoma for President Bush to give a commencement address at one of the universities down there. And we took off, and we were airborne for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and one of the flight attendants brought back the itinerary for the flight of what cities we were flying over, the temperature, the weather, what they were going to feed us in the plane. And scribbled across the front of it was a note from the president saying, Haraz, happy birthday, welcome aboard, enjoy the flight. I said, wow, this is pretty neat. So, I never thought I would have that opportunity, though, being the son of an immigrant from Iran. So my dad came here in the 70s. He served in the Shah's Imperial Navy. So my dad, back in his younger days, got a little gray hair these days, but he came here in the 1970s when America had a pretty good relationship with Iran. And my dad was in the Shah's Navy, and came and trained here with the U.S. Navy, and then decided to stay. And my dad's never been back to Iran, and I've never met any of my dad's family because they all still live in Iran. But growing up, I always kind of had that cloud, you know, from people that maybe weren't as versed or as well educated. You know, the discrimination, the name calling, the stuff going on at school. So I always felt like I always had something extra to kind of prove myself. So when I got in Air Force One that day, it was like, wow, like for all the kids that picked on me in middle school and high school, I wonder what they're doing now. And I wonder what they would say if they knew Haraz was in one of the 13 seats on Air Force One that is reserved for the press corps. So, again, these pictures are a little dark on the screen, but probably 2 years into my traveling with Bush, I gave his photographer, Eric Draper, a video of when I met Bush when he was campaigning in Akron, Ohio. I convinced a local TV station to give me the raw footage. And I said, Eric, you're on this tape asking me for my name and my rank and my information for your photo. And the president's in there, obviously, and I'm in there, and we all look so much different. But here's the tape. I just thought you would like a trip down memory lane. Okay? I copied that tape on a DVD, and we were in Waco, Texas, getting ready to walk up the stairs of Air Force One. I reached in my cargo pocket. I said, Eric, here's the DVD. You can keep it when you're done watching it. I don't need it back. And he comes back about 5 minutes later. He said, oh, I watched that video. That video was hilarious. I told the president, and he wants to see it in front of the plane. Okay. The president's going to sell me in front of Air Force One. How's my hair look? You know, I look all right. And I really think he's busting my chops. So all the way from Texas back to Andrews Air Force Base, I was wide awake. The rest of the press corps was fast asleep. I kept thinking, someone's going to come and get me in a couple minutes, and I'm going to go up, and no one came, and no one came. 10 minutes before landing at Andrews Air Force Base, Jared, the president's personal aide at the time, came back and said, Haraz, the president wants to see you in front of Air Force One. Let's talk. Is this some kind of like, what guys are you guys being serious? The next thing you know, I'm walked all the way to the front of Air Force One, and this is the equivalent of what I call the Air Force One Oval Office. It's the personal office aboard Air Force One. And I walked in the room and came over and shook my hand, and you know, he always kind of bobbles his head when he talks. It's great to see you. Mr. President, it's great to see you too. He said, hey, I watched the video. Let's get a couple pictures together. We got a couple pictures together, and he was leaning over to his desk drawer, and he was reaching into his desk looking for something. And I thought to myself again, here I am, the son of an immigrant, in my middle 20s, with the President of the United States, and nobody to tell me what to talk about or what not to talk about. And the only person that was in there was one of his daughters and the photographer that had taken my picture in Akron, Ohio, who was now his personal photographer. And I looked at him, I said, Mr. President, I know you're pretty open about your faith, and you credit your faith with changing the trajectory of your life. He kind of looked at me, he's like, yeah. I said, so you mind if I give you my favorite Bible scripture? He kind of like shook his head, like, well, that's an interesting question. He's like, yeah, go ahead. I said, Mr. President, I really like Hebrews 12:1, where it says that you got to run with perseverance the race that's marked out for you, and shake loose all the evil things that entangle you and slow you down. And then he introduced me to his daughter, and we made small talk, and I turned to the president and said, Mr. President, I got one more for you. He said, what's that one? I said, Ecclesiastes 4:12, and I took my wedding ring off. I said, it's even engraved in my wedding ring, and he put the glass on the tip of his nose in a typical President Bush fashion. He goes, well, how did you get in there? I said, Mr. President, my wife had it engraved in my wedding ring. So that one says that a triple braided cord is not easily broken, and you and your spouse and God, Mr. President, are just like a team. And I turned back around, and he had reached into his desk drawer and pulled out his Bible and started looking these verses up. And I was so in tune to my conversation with the president that I had no clue that the photographer was shooting these pictures. And I left there just thinking, wow. So I was out of the Army Guard at the time, but never far from my memory is my grandfather, who served during World War II. He was a motor machinist, made second class during World War II. He served aboard an LST. And my grandpa died when I was in college. And I always kind of thought to myself, I really wish I knew more about what my grandpa did and more about his service. And I wish that he had lived closer when I was growing up so I could just run over and talk to my grandpa and just hear about his journey and his life story. But unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity. But during this time, as I'm traveling with the President, I'm also traveling with the Secretary of Defense. So Donald Rumsfeld and Bob Gates, whenever the Associated Press needed a photographer to travel with the Secretary of Defense, they always picked me. And I had a really great relationship with Secretary Rumsfeld and Secretary Gates. We'd go to places like Iraq and Afghanistan and Kosovo. And I would go there and I thought, I got more to give the country. I got to get back in. Like, our country's at war. And when I settle down and have a family, I don't want to look at my son and daughter or my kids and say, you know what, I was off doing other stuff when my country needed me. So it kind of planted the seed in my mind that I wanted to get back in and serve. I had a college degree in journalism. And our young men and women that are serving day in and day out, from as young as 17 years old to well past retirement age, because some of them get recalled back to active duty and they're getting deployed. They have unique stories, and their stories need to be told. And the American public needs to know what our young men and women are doing day in and day out while we are gathered at the church to have lunch. We have men and women on watch right now. Sometimes you hear about them on the evening news. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they might be a headline in the newspaper the next day, or 3 or 4 of them can be killed in a training crash or off at war, and their names and their circumstances will be buried in the inside of page 5 or 6 or 10 at the very bottom in small print. While other things is getting the front page news coverage. So I thought, you know what? I want to go back in. I want to be a public affairs officer. I want to help tell the story of our men and women. So next thing you know, I'm in the Oval Office getting sworn in by the President of the United States. This was another kind of moment that I kind of thought to myself, okay, maybe this is going to happen, maybe this won't. But I was recommended for a direct commission, and was half joking one day with someone at the White House saying, hey, we talked to Secretary Gates, and if I have the privilege of being selected for my commission, he's going to swear me in. He said, Secretary Gates is a great guy, but why don't you just see the President of the United States? Regardless if you voted for him or not, he's the President of the United States. And he said, no, I am. I'm the junior guy on staff. I didn't go on President Obama's campaign. He wouldn't know me from Adam if we walked in the room together. But I thought, nothing stopped me in the past from asking a question, and the worst they're going to say is no. So I go back and I talk with them and I let them know that I'm in the process of being selected for a commission. I may or may not get it, but if I do get it, I need a commissioning officer. So June 22nd, 2009, almost 10 years to the date of arriving to basic combat training at Fort Oklahoma, my wife and I were in the Oval Office. And I had been in there hundreds of times for my civilian job, but this is the first time that my wife ever had the opportunity to be in there. So a couple pictures of, there they are pinning my rank on, and it's kind of funny, the President had to tell my wife, slow down, I've never done this before. So I was the first person, I believe, that he'd ever commissioned. And probably the greatest thing was when I pulled my Bible open, and he saw that picture of my grandpa, his basic training photo, he took that out of my hand, and he held it up to my face, and he started saying how striking the civil areas were. And I thought, you know what, this has really kind of come full circle now. So my grandpa, his memory, his legacy is what prompted me to want to get back in. Here I am now with the President of the United States, being able to share a little bit about my grandpa and his story. So right after that, I raised my hand, I said, send me to Afghanistan. That's where the war's going on right now, and we got a mission over there, and I'll go. So I arrived in Kandahar, Afghanistan on Christmas Eve of 2010. We have a 2-year training track in the Navy for the public affairs community, and I knocked all my training out in a year. Going overseas, and I got there and I was attached to the Army's 10th Mountain Division, which is a light infantry unit out of Fort Drum, New York. And they were the command element for what was known as Regional Command South. So Afghanistan's broken into different regions. And the 10th Mountain Division, they were in charge of the whole southern region at the time. So when I got to Afghanistan, the lieutenant colonel that was in charge of the public affairs shop basically said, hey, I know about your background, I know you're in the White House press corps. Here's the football, it's yours, run with it, take the shop in the direction that it needs to go. So over the next 7 months, we sent more than 250 images captured by our military journalists out onto the international news wires. So these young troops that thought, why am I here, no one's seeing my pictures? Because of my relationships, they were now on ABC Nightly News, they were in the Washington Post, they were in the New York Times, they were on the AP wire. And so it really helped kind of convey the story while we were there. But one of the things that was near and dear to my heart is after I worked a 12 or 14-hour shift as a public affairs officer, I would go over to the Kandahar World Free Hospital in Afghanistan, where our medical professionals were so proficient at their jobs and trained and skilled that if you had a heartbeat and you came into the Roll-Free Hospital, you had a 98% chance of survival, regardless of how many extremities you may have lost. And so they were taking care of our coalition partners. Obviously, they were caring for our U.S. troops, but they were also helping take care of the Afghans. Like this young man, this little boy, Sam 80, had both of his legs blown off by IED that the Taliban had planted in Afghanistan. So I spent a lot of time going over the hospital, doing magic tricks for these little kids after I was done with my 12 or 14-hour shift as the OIC of imagery. And there's never a day that goes by that I don't think about those little kids and the cost of war. So I came back home and I said, okay, it's, probably time to start the family now. Let's have our family, let's kind of settle down a little bit. So here's a family picture of my wife, Kim, and our daughter, Madison, and Jackson, and the two dogs, Gunny and Homer. But I also kind of thought, I don't know that I want to raise my family in Washington, D.C., and I don't know that I want to stay at the AP and have a shift and a schedule that changes every 3 weeks and flying around the world on a moment's notice and whatnot. And my wife grew up in White House, Ohio, so we went from one White House virtually to another White House. And we came back when my daughter was just about 2 months old. And all my friends and my dad said, why do you want to leave the Associated Press? I mean, you have a great job. You travel the world, you're on Capitol Hill, you're the State Department, you're covering all the pro sporting events as a photographer, you got press credentials to basically get in anywhere. And I said, Dad, this is great, and I love being able to tell history. And if I wanted to stay here and retire, I'm sure I could do that. But when I came back from Bosnia, I was a college student at Kent State. And overall, that was a peacekeeping mission. But even coming back from that, it was kind of hard to adjust. When I came back from Afghanistan, it was the same time the Occupy Wall Street protest was going on all across the country. And to see people walking on the U.S. flag and talking and complaining and this, that, and the other, it really kind of hit me hard. And I thought, you know what? There's men and women from Middle America, Hicksville, USA, that have deployed that don't have the resources and the connections and the know-how to kind of navigate the bureaucracy of the VA system or their education benefits or the VA healthcare system, or just come back to Hicksville and go back to being a bagger at the grocery store, or go back to plowing fields, or go back to college, or what have you. So I said, I'm going to leave my job and I want to go advocate full-time for veterans. Because I've been in their shoes coming home, but I've also been on the flip side of seeing everything from Capitol Hill to the White House and everything in between, and really kind of how to navigate that bureaucracy and how to give a voice to people that feel they may not have a voice. So we left, came back to the University of Toledo. Again, I apologize that these pictures are a little dark on the projector, but here's one example. This gentleman in the middle, Sergeant Richard Perry, served during World War II, and just last year, by pure coincidence, found out that he was awarded the Soldier's Medal, which is the highest medal for valor without direct contact with the enemy back in World War II. And that award never caught up to him. He didn't even know what a Soldier's Medal was until he called our office. So I was able to work with our Student Veterans of America UT chapter, and we were able to, I reached out to the Department of the Army, and within a week I had all of his awards approved, all of his medals sent, his name was etched on the back of everything, and we rolled out the carpet for Sergeant Perry, and we had another member of our faculty, who was a retired brigadier general, come in and pin all those medals on him. That was able to kind of close that chapter of his life. It was an opportunity for members of the campus community to know one of their faculty that spent more than 40 years at our institution, what he did during his journey. While also leaving the AP, it freed me up the opportunity to be involved a little bit more politically in the landscape. As a journalist, you are right down the middle. So I would go cover things that maybe I agreed with or I didn't agree with, but as a journalist, I was right down the middle, and I let my pictures tell the story. And I never slanted them one way or another. So I had the opportunity to speak at a couple Trump rallies on veterans issues specifically. And that was a great opportunity to take some of our student veterans, again, regardless of where folks fall on the political spectrum, there's no partisan way to take care of veterans. It's not a Democrat solution, it's not a Republican solution, it's not an independent solution. It's an everybody solution. This is a topic where folks from both sides of the aisle roll their sleeves up and they come together. But again, a great opportunity to go speak at a couple of his events, primarily on veterans issues. So let me just close this down now that those pictures are done. Turn this lights back on. So that's where we are today. Monday to Friday, I work at the University of Toledo. We got folks that are coming in trying to use their education benefits to give education. When all the political stuff with the campaign was going on, I took students to meet Trump. I took students to meet Joe Biden. I took students to meet Mike Pence. I took students to meet folks on the other side of the aisle. And I said, hey, these are some of our student veterans from Northwest Ohio. And this is their story. And whether or not you get elected to the office that you're running for, I always want you to know that these are the men and women that went down the range and they fought for the freedoms that we have. And what do we have to do to make sure that when our veterans come home, they have every opportunity to succeed? Whether it be going back in the workforce, whether it be just getting an education, whether it be transferring their benefits, whether it be making sure that they can get in to see a doctor at the VA and make sure that they get the treatment that they need. So, you know, over at the VA, I go over there quite a bit, and one of the things that troubles me the most is when I see our Vietnam veterans in there. These are men and women that went to Vietnam, and when they came back, they were never told, welcome home, thanks for your service. I think we all know what happened to our Vietnam veterans when they came back. But those are the same men and women that are in the VA, and I always wonder, what would have happened 50 years ago when these men and women came back if they felt it was okay to go get help? How would their lives be different today? How many families could have been saved? How many job opportunities could have been saved? How many opportunities were missed because they felt, you know what, I don't want the stigma of going and getting help. So that's one of the things that we do at the University of Toledo, and one of the things that I pride myself on trying to do is bridging that generational difference between veterans that served before us, veterans that are coming back today, and our young men and women that are off in basic training and they're on deployments right now. When they come home, how can we let them know that we're here for them? So the challenge that I have for your Rotary and for each of you is to find ways in which we can continue to invest in our veterans. And when I say invest, I'm not just talking about financially, I'm just talking about time. Remember, the quickest investment you can get is find a veteran, get 50 cents and go buy them a black cup of coffee and just sit down and say, hey, listen, where have you been, where are you going, and how can I help you get there? And I think if you ask them to share their story with you, you would be amazed at the stories that they have, from going off to war or going in peacetime or being 17, 18 years old, being in an aircraft carrier where they serve 15,000 hot meals a day. They got 5,000 people in an aircraft carrier sailing around the world. And it's a young 18, 19, 20-year-old driving the ship. It's a young kid out there on the deck of the ship directing these jets to take off and launch on targets and making sure that they get back safely. So if you could do that, I think that we can continue to advance the conversation about our veterans. The other reason that I think it's vitally important that we continue the conversation is because since World War II alone, there's more than 83,000 men and women that have answered our nation's call to service, and they are unaccounted for. There are prisoners of war and are missing in action. And we owe it to their families and their friends and their communities to have a full, complete accounting for each and every one of them. But if the conversation stops, then the conversation about those men and women stops. And we have to keep their memories and their legacies alive. And like I said, we owe it to their families to give a full and complete accounting for where they are. And although less than 1% of the U.S. population serves, I'll just close with this. We can't do what we do day in and day out without the support of everyday Americans like you and I that are sending good thoughts to our men and women, doing everything we can to support that serviceman or woman. So thanks for the time. I know it's hot in here, so I don't want to keep you guys too long, but if you have questions or comments or anything, I'm happy to take a couple of those or whatever you want me to do, Brian. You know, when Brian calls, I have a special office on my phone. It's like a Batman phone. When that phone rings and Brian says he needs me to come to Hicksville, I'm here in a heartbeat. So thanks for having me, Brian. Is there any questions of anyone about anything there? Yes, sir.
The picture your grandfather had U.S. Navy on it.
Yes, sir.
So was he living on Iran then and came to...
So that was the grandpa on my mom's side.
Okay.
The grandpa on my dad's side passed from a heart attack when my dad was in the 8th grade. But to answer the question about grandpa serving on that side, I think my grandpa on my dad's side did serve in the military under the Shaw as well. You know, like I told you early on, there was always kind of a little black cloud following me around because I had a different name, and people find my dad's from Iran, and be around some uneducated folks and just cast assumptions. So I was always nervous, and when Obama commissioned me, I didn't invite my parents to the Oval Office. I didn't invite anyone else but my wife, because the more people you bring, the more logistical nightmare it is to clear everyone in through all the processes. And the chief of the Navy Reserve at the time, Vice Admiral Dirk Debbing, says, well, Haraz Ghanbari, what did your family think of the White House? I said, I didn't invite anyone. He said, what? I said, sir, it's just easier to have my wife and my recruiter there. The more people you get, you leave someone out, you get offended, something happens. I just want it to be as easy as possible. He said, well, why don't we do a ceremonial swearing in for you over at the Pentagon? Bring all your work colleagues, bring your family, anyone you want. We'll go to the Pentagon, we'll do a ceremonial swearing in. I said, I told the Admiral's aide, I said, Commander, that's not necessary. So when a 3-star Admiral offers to do something, I know you're new to the Navy, Ensign, but typically you just say, Roger that, sir, and you do what he or she wants to offer up. I said, okay. So we get to the Pentagon, and my phone rings. It's the Vice Admiral's office calling me, and he said, hey, I'm just curious, Ensign, what's the origin of your name? And I'm thinking, are you kidding me right now? You're really going to ask me about the origin of my name? Like, what's this have to do with anything at all? So here rolls out the big disclaimer. Well, it's Persian. I was born in Kettering, Ohio. I'm a U.S. citizen. My father's U.S. I go through the whole disclaimer. Commander's like, no, Ensign, relax. Admiral's curious. So Admiral comes up to me after the ceremony and says, Haraz Ghanbari, the reason I was asking was because the Chief of Naval Operations wanted to know, the 4-star. I thought, oh boy, now, where's this conversation going to go? So right before I went to Afghanistan, I got an invitation to go to the Chief of Naval Operations house in the Washington Navy Yard. It was known as the Tingy House Social. And I get there, and I introduced my wife, and I said, Admiral, thanks for the invitation. It's part of your house. I said, I was wondering, I heard you were inquiring about the origin of my name. He said, yeah, what is it? I said, it's Persian. I never say it right. I said, it's Persian. He says, what part of Iran are you from? I said, no, sir. Born in Kettering, Ohio. I'm a U.S. citizen. My dad immigrated. The whole thing. I said, listen, relax. So why are you asking me these questions, Admiral? He said, I used to live in Iran when I was a kid. I said, really? So when the relations were good, the Admiral's father was in the oil business and was living in Iran. So I said, okay, so, Admiral, where were you in Iran? And I figured he was going to say the capital of Iran, which is Tehran. I said, Admiral, where'd you grow up? He was, I was on this little port city called Abadan. I'm like, Admiral, that's where my dad's from. So the Admiral and my father were only a 1-year difference. So next thing you know, I'm in the Pentagon. The Admiral says he wants to have lunch. I said, no, I'll set up as an office call. So this thing is an office call. We get to the Pentagon. Admiral comes out. He's like, Mr. Ghanbari, this is Ghanbari. I remember telling you a few months ago I wanted to have lunch. I don't know how this got set up as an office call, Ensign, but if you guys would like to have lunch, I said, okay, sir, we do lunch. So for 1 hour, they just talked. My dad was so emotional. He came in the car. I said, Dad, why are you crying right now? Like, what's wrong? He said, that was like being with one of my friends that I never had before, because he talked about the same village I grew up in, the same streets, the same soccer fields, the little movie theater, so on and so forth. And so, you never know the background of folks, of where they've been, where they're going, or how they're going to get there. But it was a pretty neat opportunity to go with my dad, who was the chief in the Shaw's Navy, and his son's a U.S. naval officer, and go sit for 1 hour private lunch with the head of the U.S. Navy. So that was my mom's dad. Long story. Any other questions? Well, thanks so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the day.